Once upon a time, there was a beautiful and kind girl named Cinderella. She lived in a large house with her father. Her mother was in heaven, but her father loved her very much. He wanted Cinderella to have a mother's love, so he married again. His new wife was a woman with a proud face and a cold heart. She had 2 daughters of her own. They looked ordinary, but their hearts were selfish and cruel. Sadly, not long after the marriage, Cinderella's father passed away. Now, Cinderella was alone with her stepmother and 2 stepsisters. The stepmother did not like Cinderella because she was beautiful and good. She wanted her own daughters to be the most beautiful girls in the house, so she treated Cinderella like a servant. She took away her nice clothes and gave her an old gray dress. She gave her heavy wooden shoes. Cinderella had to sleep in a small, cold room near the kitchen. Every day, Cinderella worked from morning until night. She woke up before the sun rose. She carried water from the well, cooked the meals, and cleaned the whole house. She scrubbed the floors, washed the dishes, and dusted the furniture. In the evening, when she was tired, she sat near the fireplace to keep warm. Cinders and ash from the fire fell on her clothes and face. That is why her stepsisters called her Cinderella. Her stepsisters were very lazy. They slept in soft beds and wore beautiful dresses. They looked in the mirror all day and complained about everything. They teased Cinderella and laughed at her dirty face. But even with her old clothes and dirty face, Cinderella was still more beautiful than her stepsisters. She never complained. She remained kind and gentle. She was friends with the little animals in the house. The mice and the birds loved her because she saved food for them and spoke to them sweetly. One day, exciting news came to the house. The king of the land wanted his son, the prince, to get married. The king decided to organize a grand ball at the royal palace. It was going to be a wonderful party with music, dancing, and good food. Every young woman in the kingdom was invited to the ball. The prince would choose his future wife during the party. When the invitation arrived, the house became very noisy. The stepmother and stepsisters were very excited. "The prince will choose one of us," shouted the older sister. "No, he will choose me because I have a better smile," said the younger sister. They began to prepare for the big night. They bought expensive fabrics like silk and velvet. They demanded new dresses, new shoes, and new jewelry. For days, the house was full of activity. Cinderella had to work harder than ever. She washed, ironed, and sewed their dresses. She helped them choose the right colors. The stepsisters were very mean. They made Cinderella run up and down the stairs 100 times a day. "Cinderella, fix my hair," shouted one. "Cinderella, find my ribbon," shouted the other. Cinderella did everything patiently. Finally, the night of the royal ball arrived. The stepsisters wore their colorful gowns and put on their jewelry. The stepmother looked very proud. Cinderella watched them and felt a little sad. She asked quietly, "Mother, may I go to the ball too? The invitation says every young woman is invited." The stepmother laughed a cold, cruel laugh. The stepsisters pointed their fingers at her. "You?" they cried. "You are dirty and full of ash. You have no dress and no shoes. The prince would laugh at you. You must stay here and clean the kitchen." They walked out the door, got into their carriage, and drove away to the palace. Cinderella was all alone. She went into the garden and sat on a stone bench. She looked at the moon and started to cry. She felt very lonely and hopeless. "I wish I could go," she whispered through her tears. I wish. Suddenly, a soft light appeared in the garden. The light grew brighter and brighter. An old woman with a kind face and a magic wand stood in front of Cinderella. She smiled warmly. "I am your fairy godmother," the woman said in a gentle voice. "I heard your tears. You are a good girl, Cinderella, and you shall go to the ball." Cinderella stopped crying. "But how?" she asked. "I have no carriage to take me there." The fairy godmother looked around the garden. She saw a large orange pumpkin on the ground. "Bring me that pumpkin," she said. Cinderella brought the pumpkin. The fairy godmother tapped it with her magic wand. Poof! The pumpkin turned into a magnificent golden carriage. It had soft cushions and shining wheels. "Now we need horses," said the fairy. She saw 4 little mice in a mousetrap. She tapped them with her wand. Poof! The 4 small mice turned into 4 strong white horses. Next, she saw a rat with long whiskers. She tapped him, and he turned into a coachman with a fine uniform. Finally, she turned 6 lizards into footmen to stand behind the carriage. Cinderella clapped her hands with joy. "It is wonderful," she said. Then she looked down at her old dirty dress. "But I cannot go in these rags." The fairy godmother laughed softly. She waved her wand over Cinderella. Instantly, the old gray dress disappeared. In its place was a beautiful gown made of blue silk and silver threads. It sparkled like the stars in the sky. On her feet, she wore a pair of tiny glass slippers. They were the most delicate shoes in the world. "Now you are ready," said the fairy godmother. "But listen carefully, my child. This magic will not last forever. You must return home before midnight. When the clock strikes 12, the carriage will become a pumpkin again, the horses will become mice, and your dress will turn back into rags." "I promise," said Cinderella. "I will leave before midnight." She thanked her fairy godmother and stepped into the golden carriage. The white horses galloped toward the palace. When Cinderella arrived at the palace, the ball had already started. She walked into the great ballroom. Suddenly, the music stopped. The guests stopped talking. Everyone turned to look at the beautiful girl in the blue gown. "Who is she?" they whispered. "She looks like a princess from a faraway land." The prince saw her and was amazed by her beauty. He walked straight to her and bowed. "May I have this dance?" he asked. Cinderella smiled and gave him her hand. They danced together across the floor. The prince did not dance with anyone else all night. He only looked at Cinderella. He liked her gentle eyes and her soft voice. The stepmother and stepsisters were also there. They looked at the beautiful princess, but they did not know it was Cinderella. They thought, "She is so lucky. The prince loves her." Cinderella saw them, but she did not say anything. She was kind to everyone at the party. The night passed very quickly because Cinderella was so happy. She forgot about the time. Suddenly, she heard the palace clock begin to chime. Star dong, dong, star, it was midnight. Cinderella remembered the fairy godmother's warning. She pulled her hand away from the prince. "I must go," she cried. "Goodbye." "Wait," called the prince. "I don't even know your name." But Cinderella did not stop. She ran out of the ballroom and down the long palace stairs. As she ran, one of her glass slippers fell off her foot. She did not stop to pick it up. She jumped into the carriage, and the horses galloped away. Just as they went through the palace gates, the clock struck 12. The magic ended. The golden carriage disappeared. Cinderella found herself sitting on the dark road, wearing her old gray dress. The pumpkin lay on the ground, and the mice ran away into the grass. The only thing she had left was the other glass slipper in her hand. She walked home slowly, but her heart was full of beautiful memories. The next morning, the palace was in confusion. The prince was very sad. He wanted to find the beautiful girl, but he only had one clue: the small glass slipper. He told his father, the king, "I will only marry the girl whose foot fits this glass slipper." The king sent his Grand Duke to visit every house in the kingdom. The Duke carried the glass slipper on a velvet pillow. Every young woman tried to put on the shoe, but it did not fit anyone. It was too small for some and too narrow for others. Finally, the Grand Duke arrived at Cinderella's house. The stepsisters were very eager. The older sister went to her room and tried hard to push her big foot into the slipper. She pushed and pushed, but her toes were too large. The Duke shook his head. Then the younger sister tried. She pushed her heel hard, but her foot was too wide. The slipper did not fit. The stepmother was angry. "Push harder!" she yelled, but it was useless. "Are there any other young women in this house?" asked the Grand Duke. "No," said the stepmother quickly. "There is only a dirty servant girl. She cannot be the princess." "I have orders to let every girl try," said the Duke. "Please call her." Cinderella came into the room. Her clothes were dirty, but her head was high. She sat down on a chair. The stepmother and stepsisters laughed. "It is a waste of time," they said. The Duke knelt down and put the glass slipper on Cinderella's foot. It slid on easily and perfectly. It fit like a glove. The stepsisters opened their mouths in shock. The stepmother turned pale. Cinderella reached into her pocket and pulled out the second glass slipper. She put it on her other foot. Just then, the fairy godmother appeared for a moment. She touched Cinderella with her wand, and her dirty rags turned back into the beautiful blue gown. The stepsisters realized that the beautiful princess was their own sister, Cinderella. They fell on their knees and asked for forgiveness. "We were so mean to you," they cried. "Please forgive us." Cinderella was kind and good-hearted. She asked them to stand up. "I forgive you," she said. The Grand Duke took Cinderella to the palace. The prince was waiting for her. When he saw her, he was filled with joy. He asked her to marry him, and she said yes. They had a magnificent wedding with flowers and music. Even the stepmother and stepsisters were invited. Cinderella and the prince lived happily ever after, and Cinderella's kindness was remembered by everyone in the kingdom.